I'm live. Hi, this is Phil. Welcome to the channel. If you've never been here before, usually I do some Star Trek talk, some general movie talk, and a little bit about my life in Brazil. So subscribe and like the channel if you dig what I'm about to do, which is talk about Spider-Man No Way Home. I just came back from the theater. It is 2:30 in the morning. I gotta get up at 7, so I'll do my best to be brief. But I just had to see this movie tonight. It was the pre-premiere, they call it down here in Brazil. Um, and I'm gonna give you my thoughts on it, my general thoughts on it, real quick, and then I'm gonna scream spoilers as much as I can because I'm still coming off of a weird flu or whatever. There's a bug going around. Um, and yeah, I'll scream spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. Although I'll tell you what, guys, unless you either live under a rock or you don't have internet, or I think we kind of know, some of the people, some of the characters that show up in this movie. So I don't know how spoilery it will get. But if you are one of these people that just don't have internet, in which case you probably wouldn't be watching this video. But in case you don't know, I will scream out spoilers, and then you'll know that I'll be getting into some of these characters that show up. But I want to begin by saying this. If you were a fan of the last, what is it, two or three Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, then you'll dig this. The quality is the same for about halfway, and then the quality goes up a notch, and that's when I'll talk about that towards the end. Uh, so I'm not a huge fan of the Tom Holland Spider-Man. I think they're good movies, but it's not something I'm racing out to the theater to watch. The last one I think I watched this year. So that's how pumped I was for it. But it's not to say that they're bad. They're just not some you know just nothing about Tom Holland's take or whatever Marvel's take on Spider-Man really excited me. But they're decent movies. So if you dug those movies, you're gonna dig this one. It's pretty much on that same level. If you're not a big fan of those movies, just stick around because man, it packs a punch after something happens. Which again, I'm not gonna say. Wait till I get to the part where I scream spoilers, and we will talk about that. Also, see it early, okay? And in a packed house, if you want, of course, I know, respecting your limitations as far as with Corona and everything. I saw it in a packed house. In fact, there were like four or five different theaters, or what would they call them? Like the rooms, whatever, showing the movie. And guys, they were all packed. I made the mistake of grabbing something to eat before going into the movie theater, thinking, okay, I'll have enough time. I missed the first 5 minutes. I'll have to watch, or maybe the first 10 minutes, because it was beyond packed. And that not just for my showing, for the next showing, for the maybe those people from the showing before. I think they had three more showings. I went to the 11, and then there was 11:35, and I think an uh, 11:35 and 11:45 p.m. showing, maybe a midnight one. And yeah, that the theater was like that, just to get my popcorn that I paid for. So I paid for it beforehand. So to wait in a long line to get my popcorn, and the line to get in, they already letting people in for the 11:30. That's how long it was taking for me to get in. And unfortunately, two other employees split the line in three, and I was able to get in to watch mine. So, it started at 11:05, I think, and I got in my seat like 11:20. So, get there early because people are really going out to see this movie. At least they were here in Brazil, but I can't imagine it won't be the same in the US. And why else do you want to see it early? Because man, oh, how I've missed the theater experience. I mean, I saw James Bond in the theaters, and it was okay. Um, but this just had the crowd cheering when certain characters show up. We already know about the bad guys, but you guys, I'll respect it in case you really don't know who doesn't show up in this movie. But when those folks show up, I recorded the second one. I mean, I didn't record the movie, but I just put this phone on my stomach, pressed the camera button because I wanted to capture that. And it wasn't, the cheering was loud, but it wasn't even as loud as for other characters that I was like, oh, I didn't expect that. Um, so definitely see in the packed house if you want to get that theater feeling if you've missed it, because it was so cool. Like, just people just going, wow, yeah, the whole theater clapping. Oh, it was cool. It was cool. Definitely cool. Also, yeah, so for me, you know, the movie, the first 30, 40 minutes, whatever, first half, I'll call it the first half of the movie, um, it was okay. Even when, and now this is not a spoiler because this was in the trailers, when Doc Ock shows up and a few other bad guys that we saw, the Goblin, Green Goblin, and Electro, and those guys. It was cool to see, but we already saw it in the trailer. At least, I shouldn't say we, but I saw it in the trailer, so it didn't have that much of an impact. And yeah, definitely, definitely just folks that are making trailers, you give too much of the movie away because it was so cool to feel that other sensation of the stuff that we didn't see in the trailer. Even though we knew those characters would show up, it was such a cool feeling. I wish I could have had that same feeling with Doc Ock and seeing it. It's like we the internet's smart. The geeks are smart. They, I should say, because I wasn't in on it, but they figured it out. So you didn't have to show it. You didn't have to show it. I think that lessens the impact because it just does. It just does. So folks that make trailers try to, not show as much, So that's what I got to say about that. But when those characters were in, yes, it did add this extra element to the story, which I thought you know, was cool. It was a little bit confusing, not in the sense of we didn't know what was going on, but Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Doc Ock, they're like, what's going on? They played that a little bit too long, but it's when the movie's wheels started turning a little bit. I will say this as far as the whole premise with well, again, and this is not a spoiler because it's in I think the first trailer talked about this. It's like he just wants everybody to forget that he's Spider-Man or whatever it is. It's Although yes, he does it for his friends because his friends are kind of guilty by association, but it still feels kind of selfish. Um, and kind of reckless for Doctor Strange to have done that. A character that, I mean, I'm not the biggest Doctor Strange fan, but I did see the first movie, and I do remember him from Avengers, yeah, obviously. And he seems like a character that's not that reckless. And this is really reckless for him to just do this just because this boy was kind of feeling sad that his friends, weren't able to get these same opportunities that they could before just based on their association with Spider-Man. And they actually even make a point of that, where, well, mini spoiler, they're trying to get into university, they don't get in. So, you know, Doctor Strange is like, you didn't call the university and tell them, listen, give these guys a chance at least. If not me, give my friends a chance to come in. And it's like, yeah, that seems like a reasonable thing to do. So I just ran with it, whatever. But I think those scenes ran a little bit long, where they tried to explain it in a way where the audience, didn't feel like this is so stupid. Like, why would Doctor Strange even consider doing this? But he does, and then you get the multiverse stuff that happens, and these other characters bleed in. I'll tell you this: all those those other characters bleeding in just reinforces how good those old movies were as far as the bad guys. Because, well, who was it? I guess there was the Birdman, Batman, Michael Keaton. It was at the second movie. I don't know. They all kind of blend into each other. He was okay, but he wasn't not I not memorable for me. This last guy was a little bit better. Gyllenhaal's character, but even then, it was like we kind of saw that coming from a mile away as far as him turning in the end. That's a spoiler for Spider-Man Far From Home, I believe it is. But in either case, overall, uh, the second half of the movie saves it, and it's what I'm giving it an A. Like, go watch it. It's not a perfect movie. It's not, a superhero classic. I don't think it'll be a superhero classic, except for that second part. Just has all the feels. I mean, it's almost impossible for them to have gotten the second half of Spider-Man No Way Home wrong, considering who was on the screen. Everything else building up to it, yeah, it was just another Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, which again, for the fans, for the Holland fans out there, I'm not hating, just doesn't resonate with me. I think I'm not the target audience. I'm 40. It really seems like the target audience for this Spider-Man is the Instagram generation, because this is a very Instagrammable, you know, Spider-Man. He's so cute and he's always stutter talking, and everybody stutter talks so much. I don't know anybody that talks like this. And can we really? I don't know anybody in real life who really talks like that. And I teach at a school. I deal with a lot of young people. Even the young people at the school, they don't talk like this. They say, "Are you sure we can't do? But we really need to try. Are you sure?" It's like whatever. But that's the demographic for this Spider-Man, which is not me. Um, and that's fine. Like I said, they're not bad movies. They're just not uh, the movies that I couldn't wait for the next one to come out. Okay. But now, guys, so yeah, that's it. Watch this movie. It's really fun. Watch it in a crowded theater if you can, because Brazilians are way more emotional, so they'll cheer, they'll cry at anything. By the way, speaking of crying, I think I almost cried 3 times in this movie, and I'm gonna get into that in just a second. But I should, I don't have to say watch this movie because everybody's gonna watch this movie. But it was a lot of fun. I had a good time at the end. But now we're gonna get into some spoilers. And the spoiler. Okay, so turn off this video if you live under a rock and don't know who shows up in this movie. Okay, that's basically it. Like, you really have to live under a rock and not know who shows up in this movie um, to you know I'm trying to get a picture of who shows up in this movie, but I don't know if it's gonna happen. Um, but yes, we get Spider-Man from way back when, Mr. Tobey Maguire, and we get Spider-Man, uh, Amazing Style from Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. So if the bad guys are coming through, then of course the good guys come through too. And there's my boys right there. And this is when the movie got good, really, for me. Like, that's when these two just elevated the movie. Not, maybe because I'm not gonna say because they're better actors, but I think just their portrayal of Spider-Man, in spite of the script, especially for poor Andrew Garfield, those scripts not being the best, and that's me being very, very nice, especially when it comes to the Amazing Spider-Man 2. But I still loved his Spider-Man. I mean, for me, he's the closest that they've made Spider-Man based off of the comics, which I'm not a huge Spider-Man reader, but I've read a handful of Spider-Man comics, Spider-Man, even animated series. Garfield is it. Toby, they took a lot of liberty with, but he just brought the heart. He brought so much heart to that role. I think that's what we remember those movies for. And I think to this day, most people rank Spider-Man 2 as the best of them all, other than Miles and Into the Spider-Verse. But, live action wise, Toby is just, he's the heart. Okay. He's like, uh, Christopher Reeve in that sense, of you're going to have many other Supermen in the future with better special effects, more stakes as far as, universe battles and blah, 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 blah. But those original, Superman 1 and 2, when, he's hanging on some wire, are still just, that's the heart Superman. Okay. Those are the ones that are the heart. And Toby has that. So when they came in, they elevated the movie, um, and they brought real depth. And it in Tom Holland's character, Tom Holland's Spider Man brought real depth, because now this is a big spoiler, guys. So if you really, 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 really want to skip out of the video and come back later, you want to skip out now, okay? Because now we're getting into deep spoiler, and it's the fact that Aunt May dies in this movie. Okay, Aunt May does not survive, and she is killed by the Green Goblin. So no more Aunt May, and that, I think, for me, is what had been missing from the Tom Holland Spider-Man, is that emotional depth. Because I've seen all of them, but I honestly can't remember. Did anybody die? Because I mean, we got Aunt May. Was there an Uncle Ben in this version, or is Aunt May just like a single woman? Why was she raising him? Did his parents die? Like, again, I'm sure if I go back and watch the first of the Holland Spider-Mans, I'm sure it's within the first 5-10 minutes. It's like, yeah, uh, but it there's so little emotional depth to Tom Holland's Spider-Man. When he's on his field trip one day, he's in Europe, and he's here, he's there, he's cute, he's personable, people like him. Uh, that I can't actually remember that. I didn't like Amazing Spider-Man 1 or 2, but I definitely remember Garfield's parents, and they didn't have a, a, a very good fate. Although that one I'm getting kind of mixed up. I think that was his aunt and his uncle too. But I do remember that, and of course Gwen Stacy. What happened there? Ugh, you know that has emotional weight, and it comes back in this movie in a really good way. And of course, we all remember Toby Maguire when Uncle Ben dies, and the guilt he feels because of that, and when he loses his best friend, who becomes the Green Goblin Part Two. So the kiss, of course, the Mary J. kiss. We remember the Holland Spider-Man just has not given me that one scene, that one emotional thing that I'm like, oh, I connect with this kid. But finally, in this movie, he did, because Aunt May dies. Um, and we see, hey, this is real life. This is not cutesy. He stops that, and I'm like, thank you, because it's very annoying. He cuts right into vengeance mode, and he really needs those other two Spider-Man there to kind of reel him in. And that's when I was saying, um, some real emotional stuff there. First, okay, before I get into that, how they come in, and I won't spoil that for you too much, how they appear. And that was the first big cheer. One of these two, I'm not going to say which one shows up first, and the cheering was intense, like, oh my God. And then well, that kind of gives it away because Toby is the one that everybody knows. So I was shocked by the reception that Garfield got, at least in our theater. Garfield was the one that was getting more love than Toby. Toby, of course, he got clapped when he came in, but it was like the national team scored a goal when Garfield showed up, and it was cool, and it caught me by surprise. Like that's what I'm saying with the trailers. Cut out the cool shit, Let us like feel that, because I was kind of lost, like, it, and then people in the theater was like, oh, and I was like, wait, what am I missing? And then, woo, we had that Spider-Man show up, and it was so cool. If anybody's listening, first part of this video was a non-spoiler version of how I felt about Spider-Man No Way Home. We're getting into spoiler territory, but again, spoiler with air quotes, because unless you have no internet, in which case you wouldn't even be watching this video, or you live under a rock, I think we all knew that, Toby and Garfield were going to be in this movie. Uh, I was just saying, hey, the trail, how they entered was cool, and I'm not going to tell you that. Okay, I'm not going to tell you that at all. Certain things in this movie you really should experience yourself, uh, and I think it'll be cool. But when Aunt May died, I did. That's a big spoiler, though. When Aunt May dies, the That's when, for me, the movie clicked. Okay, like I was invested in this character now, in his pain, in his grief, in his loss. Whereas in the other movies, there was nothing that I was invested in. It was just like a big CGI battle. There's a bad guy. Spider-Man's got to stop him, and there's a whole lot of Iron Man in between. This one, no, I'm invested in Tom Holland's character, his version of Spider-Man. Toby and Garfield, they bring that emotional depth as these older Spider-Men who have also had loss and grief, and they're telling him, man, it sucks, but you got to get past it. You got to move past it, and stuff like that. It's really beautiful. Man, I almost teared up. I almost teared up that scene, seeing Toby Maguire again. I almost teared up because then it's childhood. I mean, I can't remember now. What was that? 2009? It was 2006. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. I wasn't a little kid, but it's still a different time. It was, I was in a different phase of my life, and it brought back so many feelings. I didn't get a chance to see those movies in the theater, and it's just, yeah, I'm getting a little emotional now just thinking about it. So it brings the feels, but it does it in a cool way. It does it in a cool way. It's not cheap at all. Not a cheap feelings grab. So um, yes, and man, they really made their appearance worth it, and they gave them nice meaty scenes. Um, they gave him stuff to do. It wasn't just, an extended cameo. Like any one of these three Spider-Men could have taken over the movie at any point. Like it was that well done. So bravo for not just having these elongated cameos for these movies. Um, and I think that's it, guys. I mean, that's it. I'm not going to get into plot points. Yeah, go watch the movie. You'll get the plot points. Some of it you'll say it's kind of like, yeah, but whatever. Um, all right, I'll give a final spoiler warning. Now, these are real spoilers, real spoilers, which is the only thing that made me go like, huh? And maybe those of you who watch this can help me out with this. To get everything back in order, Strange does another spell, and Strange, by the way, is out of action for most of this movie, which is good, but it's kind of silly how it is that he's out of action for that long. But whatever. Um, But then when he comes back, they decide, hey, let's do another spell. This time, make everybody forget Peter Parker, and that's how the movie ends. Like, which I did like. You know, Aunt May didn't come back. He didn't like. Let's reverse things back to how they were. Um, but everybody forgets Peter Parker. But how did that work exactly? You know, how does that work logistically? Uh, because is he erased from the yearbook? Like, I didn't get how that part of the let's everybody forget Peter Parker worked. And two was, yeah, if these characters died, Doc Ock, Green, actually all of them died. They were all killed by Spider-Man. Well, Spider-Man is a murderer. That much I've garnered from this movie. Like at least Toby's and Garfield's version of Spider-Man. Oh, there's people in the comments here. Oh, okay. Um, so those guys are. I'm talking to you, Nitin, whoever the hell you are. But the those yeah, those are murderous Spider-Man. But the thing is, and again, kind of contrived, but if Holland's Spider-Man decides, hey, I don't want to send them back into their regular verse because when they go there, they're probably gonna die. So he decides instead he wants to save them. He wants to find like a cure for their ailments. Like he wants to fix Doc Ock, get the electricity out of Jamie Foxx's Electro, and that's the crux. That's like the whole kind of. That's a really important plot point, but I thought it was so silly, considering the fact that whoa, these guys are really. So Nitin, how are you, by the way? I'm not expecting much. That's what I'm saying. I wasn't expecting much, but I really loved it. I really loved the second half of the movie. I thought it was awesome. I'm just going into some nitpicky stuff, which is very spoilery, by the way. Uh, Less spoilery stuff is at the beginning. Um, but why would he? Well, I guess because these people needed a second chance, so he didn't want to send them back. But then if they go back into their universe, when they die anyway? I don't get how they get a second chance because somehow they got bought out of death. Well, it's Marvel, not just Superman. You talk about what do you expect out of a Spider-Man movie? What do you expect out of a Marvel movie, especially ones trying to deal with science or stuff like that? So that was kind of weird. Um, the fact that again Peter Parker's forgotten. How does that work? That's kind of weird. And I guess that's it. Otherwise, yeah, like the parts of the movie that just felt like the last three movies, since I'm not a huge fan of those movies, I was just like, okay, like I just kind of sat through because they're not bad. It's not like watching paint dry. But then once that character I said, Aunt May, meets her end, we finally got Holland giving us some emotional depth. And then when the two other boys come in, then it's feels. It's all about the feels. Okay. And they just make it work. They just really, really made that second half of the movie work. And I recommend it. Go out there and watch it. Oh, one last little spoilery thing. There's two end credit scenes. So again, if you're just tuning in now, don't listen. Go back. Beginning of this video is non-spoiler. This part is extremely spoiler. So we're talking about the end scene. Venom shows up. Okay. So if you watch the end of Venom, you know that he got caught up in the whole multiverse thing. So he's been in the Marvel universe, whatever you want to call it. And he's talking to this bar guy. He's kind of drunk, and he's like, "So you're telling me there's an iron guy here that used to fly?" And an alien, purple, they're just kind of poking fun at themselves, being kind of meta. But just as he's about to, say whatever he's going to say, he snaps out. So he's brought back to the Sony verse, I guess we call it, because legally, I guess they can't make a whole movie where Holland's Spider-Man and what's his name's forgot his name now. His Venom are together, and it wouldn't make sense because he's kind of like an anti-hero. He's not like an actual bad guy. Venom, the symbiote, and obviously uh, the the host. So it wouldn't make sense. I don't know how they would make that work. But as he snaps out, he was just about to turn into Venom, and then he gets snapped out, and a little bit of the Venom stays in the Marvel verse. So I guess that's how we will get the symbiote in the Marvel verse. Okay, although I hear it's the last one, yet I guess it's moving back over to Sony. I don't know. It's the weird stuff. I just heard the president of whoever say she was like, no, we're definitely making more movies with Tom Holland. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So that's one. The second, like the final credit scene, it's not really a scene, it's a trailer for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And it was like, okay, this looks boring, but I'm not a fan of that stuff. If you're a fan of Doctor Strange and the multiverse and WandaVision, Wanda wasn't it, then you will love it. I don't dig it, so I didn't really care. Um, and that's it. Okay, because I'm going to bed. Thank you for watching. I'm going to do a Star Trek review at some point tomorrow. Okay. Thank you, Knitton, whatever, for listening. And I'm gone. Good night.